Hello and welcome to the One Life Church devotional series where we cover the entire Bible in 20 months. Today we wrap up the book of Exodus 40, and we continue with the Sermon on the Mount, Matthew chapter 6. So Exodus 40 is essentially the beginning of tabernacle worship. Remember, the whole book of Exodus, God has explained to Moses how they've got to set up the tabernacle, the altar, the basin, the lampstand, the outer court, all the utensils that are used in the ceremonies, the incense. It's been described in minute detail, and Moses has got the creative people in Israel to create this thing. And then eventually they're ready to set it up. And so chapter 40 describes how it's all set up. It's a fascinating chapter for you to look at and to look at the symbolism behind it, what it means for us today. But I'd like to draw attention to the very culmination of Exodus, the glory of God in his tabernacle. Now, we know that his tabernacle is now with us. We are his temple. And God's plan has always been for his glory to be with his people, his presence with his people. A wonderful way to end the book of Exodus. Now, Matthew chapter 6, the continuation of the Sermon on the Mount, is essentially about two things. It's about worry, and it's about money. Now, the way you handle worry is you give it to the Lord, you pray. And the way you handle your money is you consecrate that to the Lord. And so let's have a look at what it says. He says in verse 1 of chapter 6, "Be careful not to practice your righteousness in front of others to be seen by them. If you do this, you'll have no reward in heaven from your Father. So when you give to the needy, do not announce it with trumpets to be honored by those in the synagogues and those right. In fact, don't let your right hand know what your left hand's doing." And so he begins by saying, your righteousness is expressed in your finance. And one of the ways you do that is you bless people, you bring your tithe, you give offerings into the kingdom. That's how you do it, but you don't announce it for worldly recognition. It's a part of your righteousness between you and God. And then he says, this is what you need to be doing. You need to be praying and not like the religious people who want to be seen by everybody. No. Go into your closet, go into your room. You've caught me today where I come and pray with my early morning devotional walk, and I've got my dogs with me. I walk in nature like this, and I pray. It's the easiest way that I can remove the clutter from my mind and from my consciousness. So I come and walk out here, I sing, nobody can hear me except a couple of cows here and there, and this is where I pray. So he says, draw aside and pray. And then he describes to them what they should be praying. Our Father in heaven. This is where the Lord's Prayer comes in. And basically he's saying this is what a consecrated life is like, a life that's without worry. It's a life that's dedicated to the Lord and giving these things to him in prayer. And the same applies to fasting. And then he goes back to the subject of money. He says, don't store up yourself treasures on earth where moths and vermin destroy and where thieves break in and steal, but store up your treasures in heaven. And so he's basically back to the issue of money again. So actually, you're going to get distressed, worried, all wound up if your whole life is wrapped around your money. He said, no, there's another way to handle this. And this is how he ends. He says, therefore I tell you, don't worry about your life, your drink, and what you eat and your clothes. Look at the birds of the air. And he says, so don't worry, saying, what shall we eat, what shall we drink? For the pagans run after these things, but your Father knows that you need them. And then this is the key verse, verse 33. But seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things will be given to you as well. Therefore, don't worry about tomorrow. Tomorrow's got enough worry for itself, he says. So this section of the Sermon on the Mount is essentially about worry and about money. And funny how those two things are often very correlated, aren't they? Our lives are to be consecrated to him, and we give our worries to him, we give our cares to him, and we give our finance to him. That's how we live a life free of stress and wholly devoted to him.